I'm Pete McFall, and I served in the Navy from 63 to 69. Was on a destroyer home ported out of Pearl Harbor. And today I brought with me my 1942 Willys Jeep that was built on December 7th, 1942. It has significance in the family in that it's an anniversary date of Pearl Harbor. My dad was there. He was out at sea at the time it happened. And also one of his ships, the U.S.A.F. Mayhan, went down on December 7th, 1944 in Leyte Gulf in the battle for the Philippines. And today we like to give tribute to all those that went over and are now still serving their country that didn't come home.
Hi, my name is Aaron Ehlers. I'm with the Eagle Field Foundation, and right next to me I have the M1079 MRAP. MRAP is mine resistant, ambush protected. This particular vehicle was a unique prototype built by BAE Systems here in Santa Clara. On the back you'll notice that it's an armored hull, and that armored hull is meant to defeat landmines, anti-personnel mines, heavy weapon systems, and it's made out of a titanium hardened hull. Okay. Now what we've done here, and it's sort of unique, is this was a test bed for this particular platform. And this was meant to test future hull design and future armored vehicles. This particular hull is put on the back of a standard military truck. The M1079 is a special service truck. Every service in the United States military uses it for different applications. This happens to be a six-wheeled version. It goes about 60 miles per hour.
Okay, you want to walk us around and say anything about the bed? Start telling us.
Hello, my name is Alex Moresco. I am a member of the Eagle Field Foundation, and standing right behind me here is our own AIFV, that stands for Armored Infantry Fighting Vehicle. So this vehicle is the NATO version of the M2 Bradley that is currently in use by the U.S. Army. If you come around this side here, you'll notice these markings right here are for our NATO insignia. So this vehicle was made by the United States and was shipped out to Turkey, the Netherlands, Belgium, and a few other countries in the NATO organization for use in their military. The concept behind this vehicle is you basically grab a squad of infantry and you bring them up to the front lines. The vehicle can lay down some covering fire with a 25mm Bushmaster cannon and a 7.62mm machine gun. And it basically drops the squad off at the front, comes back, grabs another squad, and brings them up front as well. A few other things that you'll notice about the vehicle is the commander's hatch. It's going to be right here. And you have the gunner up on top of the turret, and the driver right here in the front. And if you come around to the side here, you also have a few firing ports. Two here and two on the other side of the vehicle in the rear. The purpose of these firing ports is for the infantry on the inside. They can open up these ports and shoot outside with their rifles or light machine guns to provide some extra battle support. If you come around to the back, this ramp door is hydraulically run. The driver can lower it from the front there. And you'll have about 6 to 8 guys here in the back with all their combat equipment, rifles, web gear, helmets, all that fun stuff. And this ramp lowers down, squad comes out, they get into their formations, and the driver will go ahead and lift the ramp back up, and they'll go ahead and drive away. You have a various little equipment racks right here where you can either store packs and other types of equipment here, or just use them as a handhold. Once again, you have more of the firing ports here. This right here is the part of the ammunition feed for the 25mm. The shells eject here and just fall harmlessly off the side of the tank. And another neat feature about this vehicle is it was semi-amphibious. This right here is a river fording ramp. To undo this, you basically pull on this little latch here. It folds down, and this was done prior to fording a river or crossing a narrow channel so that they can get to the other side and continue their operations.
Hi there, I am Amelia Thomas with the Eagle Field Foundation. I am the volunteer coordinator with the group. This is our 577, our M113 577 vehicle. This was used during the Vietnam War. It's an armored field hospital. It's most recognizably an armored personnel carrier, but we use it as a field hospital, and maybe we can take a look inside as well. It's set up the way it was during the Vietnam War. It was not actually used during the war. This particular vehicle was not, but vehicles like it did exist and were used frequently. This vehicle weighs about 18 tons, and what makes this particular one very special with our group is that it's crewed by all women. So we have a female driver, a female commander, which is me, and then it's crewed by all women, so we take care of it, we maintain it, and we drive it at every single event. Yeah. All right, so, the front. So what makes it special, we're told, is that this has a flat spot right here before it goes all the way to the top. That wasn't super common. Another thing that makes this vehicle not super common is the fuel tanks in the back, which you'll see. This vehicle was painted recently. Originally, it was a NASA vehicle. It was painted originally white with this awful blue stripe on the side, and we have made it look exactly the way it would have been during the Vietnam War. We also have an American flag on top because we are into patriotism. All right, so over here we have an exact example of what a Vietnam nurse would have worn. Nurses in Vietnam. Oh, okay. Sorry. More? Okay.
I just wanted you not to hold the cord. Give her somewhat slack.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So this is an exact example of what a Vietnam nurse would have worn during the war. Nurses, female nurses in particular, were in fact allowed to work on these vehicles. Don't let anyone tell you differently, but only as nurses. Now, all medical personnel that were in these vehicles were the only medical personnel allowed to use guns during the war or to hold guns. Any other medical personnel were not. So you would have your belt, a couple pouches, you would have your canteen, your hat, and then your medical bag, and you'd also have jungle boots. This right here is a sink that you would have washed your hands in because cleanliness is very important when you are dealing and treating with people. All right, so inside here, can you see inside? It's very special the way it's set up. It's set up exactly the way it would have been. We are told that one more stretcher would have been used for a doctor to sleep if he was truly very tired, but other than that, it's set up exactly how it would have been. We know this from photos and from all of the vets who help us out in our organization. There is a commander's hatch right there, but you have to raise the seat all the way up to get to it. Anything else? Huh? Yeah, we're done. Oh, what makes this vehicle special, so this is a variant, but it's got these fuel tanks on the back. This wasn't really done. It would have just been flat. What also makes this special was the fact that you can actually stand at it. And I know that I'm a small woman, but you can stand up in it. That way you can have easy maneuverability. And yeah, there were seating here.
Fantastic. My name's Andrews Hudson, and I'm on the board of directors of the Eagle Field Foundation. And this piece behind me is the XM800T. This is one of 6 remaining in the United States and the only one that's fully functional. This was actually made as a light tank to be used in Vietnam. This sort of predated or post-dated the M8 Greyhound that was used in World War II and predated the Sheridan systems. It's predominantly made out of steel and aluminum because it was made to be airdrop capable, and serve primarily a support role with a crew of 3. This is one of several of the vehicles that we have that are one of a kinds, in addition to our LRDGs and the prototype MRAP, in that we specialize in one of a kind vehicles and rare restorations. So this one is actually functional, and it is part of our tank camp series. People can actually learn how to crew and operate this vehicle as well as ride in it at certain occasions. These did do some very limited service in Vietnam, just because we got over there and discovered that tanks weren't exactly the best idea under the conditions, other than in specific allocated support roles. The program actually ran from 1967 to 1979, but as I mentioned, it actually saw very, very short-lived deployment, and most of the remaining copies were scrapped afterwards, so thus leaving the 6 remaining. Yeah, sure. So, these are actually lift points that can have chains attached to them, so the entire vehicle can be airlifted. A more narrow track pattern than you see on a lot of the other vehicles. Turret with 360-degree range. Supports a 20mm cannon, as well as a variety of small arms that can be put on the top. So there's a crew of 2 in the top. There will be typically a commander and a gunner, as well as a driver that sits in the front of the vehicle. The exhaust system is on the back top. Standard turbo powered diesel engine in the back behind the crew compartment, separated by a firewall just behind the rear of the turret. This is going to be your access to your fuel tanks, as well as your access to the coolant on the other side. Engine compartments right here. This is basically access to the engine and the access to the engine and the transmission from here, as well as all of your secondary service points. And again, these are the rear 2 of the freight anchors to actually lift the vehicle, should you want to airlift the vehicle. Over here on the other side is the entrance to the crew compartment. This is where the driver as well as the gunner and commander could access the vehicle, as well as through any of the top hatches. And so this is typically where you would have, in addition to crew access, this is where you would have access to storage for any equipment or ammunition that would go along with the vehicle. Anything from the cannon ammo all the way up to individual small arms ammunition, and in some cases communications and command equipment. This is a fairly important piece right here. This is the fire suppression system. So in the event that the vehicle was to catch fire, you can actually pull this red layer here, and it'll launch a fire suppression system in the inside, and hopefully put anything that's burning out, if you're lucky. Standard and blackout headlights available for standard night and stealth night operation. So later versions of these would be replaced with IR equipment, but this sort of predated that retrofit. And then of course these are all the periscopes, which are fully lensed periscopes. For when the driver's compartment hatch swings closed, you can actually see through and drive the tank fully buttoned up to prevent small arms fire, grenade access, or even NBC access. So natural, biological, and chemical warfare, various types of gases, those things. So that's pretty much all the bells and whistles.
Okay, my name is Bill Burns. I'm with the Eagle Field Foundation, and what you see here, I'm representing the Long Range Desert Group, which was actually a British and New Zealand. It's kind of a early secret forces, early war. What you see here is one of the trucks that would be in the Desert Group. It was usually 2 trucks, maybe six or 7 Jeeps. And what they would do is they would go around North Africa and pretty much follow Rommel around, sabotaging his fuel supplies, and they'd mostly strike at night. Rommel said that of all the tank groups he faced in North Africa, These guys were the toughest. He could not get near these guys. So you're probably wondering why the drive. Sure. So you're probably wondering why, since it's it's definitely a Chevy truck, and you're probably wondering why the steering wheel is on the right-hand side. Well, they were made for the British, and you know how the British feel about having right-hand side drive. These trucks are actually constructed in Canada and then shipped over to England and then brought over to North Africa. Some of the features you see here this is called the sand bladder. Now, if the trucks got stuck in the desert, they'd roll these out, fill them full of water, and then we were able to get out of the sand. Same thing with these things here. These were also used to get out of the sand if they were stuck. The guns you see are 303 Vickers, and if they look familiar, these are the same type of weapons that were used in World War I airplanes, and then they were just put onto these vehicles. Also, there's not a lot of insignias, you notice, on these trucks or on the uniforms. That was basically to kind of blend into the environment. So when a German plane flew over, these trucks and uniforms looked just like the Germans. So when they flew over, they weren't sure to strafe these guys or bomb them because they couldn't see any insignias. So the soldiers on the ground, who were British, just wave at the planes, and the planes would wave back, and they'd be like, I don't know if these guys were our guys or not. So, what else can I tell you?
Anything in the back?
Yeah, let's go in the back. Now, usually all the supplies are kept here. And what you see here on the ground, that's basically what would fit in the truck. Not to mention gasoline. These are called jerry cans. They're gas cans. They were called jerry cans because the British stole them from the Germans, and Germans' nicknames were Jerry's because the British gas cans were no good, so they stole the Germans. This would basically all fit in the back of the truck, and they'd travel for hundreds of miles at night, tracking the German tank groups, and then striking at night, and then making a run for it.
My name is Jack Valenti. My wife LaDonna has joined me today. This is a depiction of a 1942 LRDG Jeep that would have been lend-leased to the British in North Africa to fight behind the lines, fight behind the lines, Germany and Italy in North Africa. They would spend up to 3 weeks behind the lines. They used the LRDG trucks, which is up there. This would have been a command car with the commander in the lead, and he would be looking for the easiest way over the sand dunes. They would be 1,500 miles behind the lines, no airdrops. They would carry everything they needed, ammo, food, fuel, everything they needed for 3 weeks behind the lines. Basically, they were an intelligence gathering unit, and they would spy on the traffic going east and west. If the traffic was going east, then they knew that Rommel was building up for an attack. If it was going west, they knew that he was retreating. And what else do you want to know? This is a sun compass. Was used as for directions. Since metallic, a lot of metal, regular compass wouldn't work, so the sun compass was used like a sundial. Every 15 minutes, the navigator would adjust the sundial or the sun compass for the inclination of the sun. At the end of the day, they would use a device called a theodolite to take a star setting. They would get a tone from Greenwich Mean Time with their wireless truck, and from that tone and a book of logarithms that they would use, they would be able to pinpoint their spot in the desert. The navigator would use time, distance, and speed. So he was here with a clipboard writing, watching the speedometer and the sun compass with all of their navigational. They didn't have GPS back then.
Hi, I'm Fran McVeigh. I'm president of the United Veterans Council. We, along with Oak Hill, put this event together every year. I'm also chair of the County Veterans Commission, and this is going to be, we hope, the best of the annual events in probably 100 years, because so many things are key anniversaries this year. It's the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. So throughout the season, through Veterans Day, we'll be mindful of that. We come together here to honor those who've made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our country. But as you see from all the exhibits, we also want it to be a pleasant and fun day for families to come together from diverse backgrounds and experience and enjoy the fruits of freedom.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rich Kiefer. I'm a docent on the U.S.A.F Hornet. I was a naval aviator in the 1960s. I flew the airplane here behind me. It's an F-8 Crusader. It's a Mach 1.8 airplane, and we have a full-size model of it aboard the Hornet. The Hornet's in Alameda County. It's over at Alameda Point in Alameda. And we're open from 10 to 5 every day of the year except New Year's, Christmas, and Thanksgiving. So come out and see us. I served 7 years in the Navy. I have about 1,000 hours in the airplane behind me here and a little less than 400 carrier landings, day and night. It's a beautiful little airplane. It's available for visits by family and kids. We allow them to actually get in the cockpit and put a helmet on and let them live the dream of being a jet pilot. So we have outreach programs throughout the year. Look for us certainly during Veterans Day and Memorial Days. We're around a lot of places, so if you happen to see an advertisement about us, stop by and say hello.
Thank you, sir.
All right, my name is Phil Tracy. This is a 1941 Dodge W6 Reconnaissance Command car. They use these for command. Generals would use them, and the standard Army personnel would use them too for reconnaissance and radio reconnaissance. And they built this model from 1941 till early 42, and then they switched over to the WC series, the WC-51s, which are 3/4 ton. This is a 1/2 ton. Has a 6-cylinder Dodge engine in it. Has radios in it currently. And they made about 19,000 of this particular model. So they didn't make a lot of them. Overall, they made, I don't know, 150,000 Dodge trucks. Sent a lot to Russia. Sent a lot of Studebakers. And that's about all there is to say about this, other than it runs sweet.
3 hours, okay. Hi, my name is Dan. This is a 1914 Chevrolet H2. It's called the Royal Mail Roadster. Chevrolet company was formed in 1911, but they didn't make any cars that year. They were just tooling up, and in 1912 they didn't make a car either. In 1913 they made the Classic 6, a great big expensive car, but in 1914 they downsized and made the smaller car that you see here, the H2 Royal Mail. The touring car would have been called the Baby Grand Touring. So what sold these Chevrolets was that motor. It's a first overhead valve Chevrolet. And this was a proven peppy motor. It was so successful, they kept that same exact displacement and design all the way through 28 on the Chevys. 29 they came out with the 6-cylinder and went many decades with that. So this is a 4-cylinder car, 3-speed transmission, whereas the Fords here all have a planetary 2-speed transmission. So quite a car for the day. Costs $750 new, whereas the Fords are more like in the $500 price range for the same year. So quite a difference there. So this is the earliest Chevrolet that anybody can acquire, a 1914. There are only 50 1914 Chevrolets in the world that exist today. This is one of them. Very few of these actually get out and see the road. Most are in museums, but we do drive this, and it's a lot of fun. So of those 50 cars, about half are touring cars, half are roadsters. So this is the roadster version here. It's a lot of fun to drive, peppy little car, and really goes. There is no water pump on this car. It's a thermosiphon. Hot water just rises through the motor. You can see it has big hoses and outlets on it, and with no water pump, hot water just rises and does its thing, cooling itself through the radiator. There's no fuel pump on this car either, in that the gravity tank it's fed by gravity from this large oval tank behind the seat. So no fuel pump, no water pump. It's really simple. This car doesn't have a starter and doesn't have electric lights either. This car, you start with the hand crank every time. In fact, you want a demo? Okay, here's what we do then. We make sure we're in neutral. We retard the spark, give it just a little gas. I turn the ignition on. I'm going to turn the gas on because I had it off here. Okay, we are ready to go now.
Yep. Wow.
You have to retard the spark to start it or you'll break your wrist. So that's the only thing you got to watch. This car runs really nice. It's a lot of fun. All these holes that you see all over the valve covers, you have to oil every morning when you go out for the day. Put a drop of oil in each hole. That's how you oil the valves. It's not pumped up there. It's all by hand. You have to oil that. So, all exposed. There's no bell housing here. You have to have the floorboards in there or you'll tear your feet up because everything is open and spinning away there. So we can look at the other side. We'll come around the other side. And this is the magneto, the ignition side here. That small magneto makes all the electrical power for the spark plugs is all. And you can see the exposed valve, the push rods on here. Again, no water pump, no fuel pump. Gas lights here. These are cowl lights. These you light with a match. Same with the headlights. When you want headlights, there's a Prestolite tank, which is an acetylene tank that mounts in the back of the car. And I go up and I light these lights at night. So that's it. Here's the oil sight gauge. This is worth looking at. This is not an oil pressure gauge. It's a sight gauge. If you get in there close, you can see oil streaming through there. When you start it up, you take a quick look at the sight gauge, make sure you got oil going. That delivers it down to the pan where it's a splash system from there. It splashes oil up to the rods and mains and all that. So it's that's the sight gauge. So it's a lot of fun. Like I say, to get headlights, I would come back here and you turn on this tank, the valve on the tank here. This is called the Prestolite tank, and that's acetylene gas that gets piped up to the headlights and you light your lights with a match. I use a striker, so that's the way it's done. Primitive car, but a lot of fun. Yep.
My name's Alan Greenberg. I'm a member of Santa Clara Valley Model T Ford Club. We're here today to support this event, as we do many of the events around the Santa Clara Valley. Our club, which is comprised of 125 members, participates in events like this, plus tours, and other things, and senior centers, and other things that we do.
Start telling us about the car a little bit. Give us a walk around.
Well, the car is a 1915 Model T Ford. Henry Ford built 15 million Model Ts from 1908 to 1927. This is a typical 15 with 2 speeds forward, 1 speed reverse. It has a 20 horsepower engine. And that's about it.